Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Facts channel. I'm so glad you found your way here. Maybe you had a long day? Or maybe you're the kind of person who likes falling asleep to ocean mysteries rather than counting sheep. Either way, tonight's journey is for you. Let your mind relax, your breathing slow, and your body grow light as if floating in warm tropical waters. Because tonight, we're exploring manta rays, those gentle giants who glide through the sea like living kites, carried by invisible currents. We'll drift from their graceful movements to their surprising intelligence, discovering creatures who dance with divers and recognize their own reflections. Some of what you hear tonight may surprise you, or at least spark curiosity as you drift off. Before we begin, if this helps you unwind, consider liking and subscribing, one sleepy soul at a time. Now, let's begin. The manta ray belongs to a family of fish that has no bones in its body. Instead of a skeleton made from hard calcium, the manta ray's entire frame consists of flexible cartilage, the same material that shapes your ears and nose. This gives the manta an almost magical quality, as it moves, bending and flexing in ways that boned creatures never could. When a manta ray glides through the ocean, its body ripples like silk caught in a gentle breeze. Every movement, fluid and effortless. The cartilage allows the ray to twist, turn, and roll with a grace that seems choreographed, though it is simply the result of millions of years of perfect adaptation. This lightweight skeleton means the manta can grow enormous without the burden of heavy bones weighing it down. The largest manta rays stretch from wingtip to wingtip across distances of 7 meters or more. Imagine a creature wider than 2 cars parked end to end. Yet this giant moves through water with barely a whisper of effort. The wingspan of a fully grown oceanic manta ray can reach up to 7.5 meters, making it one of the largest rays in existence. Despite this impressive size, the manta weighs far less than you might expect, with most large individuals reaching around 1,300 kilograms. Their flat, diamond shape distributes their weight across a broad surface, and when they swim, they seem to defy gravity itself. These gentle giants drift through the ocean like enormous butterflies, their wing-like fins beating slowly up and down in a motion so smooth it looks like flying rather than swimming. Manta rays live in tropical and subtropical waters all around the world. You can find them cruising along coastlines, near coral reefs, and around offshore islands, where the water stays warm throughout the year. They prefer temperatures between about 19 and 28 degrees Celsius, which keeps their metabolism running comfortably. Some manta rays stay near the same reef systems for years, becoming familiar residents that divers recognize and name. Others travel vast distances across open ocean, following invisible highways of current and temperature. These ocean wanderers are called oceanic manta rays, and they roam freely between distant feeding grounds and cleaning stations. There are also reef manta rays, which tend to stay closer to coastal areas and are slightly smaller than their oceanic cousins. Both types share the same elegant form, the same gentle nature, and the same unhurried approach to life beneath the waves. The manta ray has no stinger on its tail, unlike many of its relatives. While stingrays and other cousins carry venomous barbs for defense, the manta has evolved beyond the need for such weapons. Its tail trails behind like a long, thin rope, harmless and flexible. This absence of a stinger speaks to the manta's place in the ocean. It is so large and so graceful that few predators dare approach it. The tail serves mainly as a rudder, helping the manta steer through 3-dimensional space with precision. When a manta swims, its tail follows the body's movements, like a ribbon in water, curving and flowing, but never threatening. This makes the manta ray one of the safest large animals to encounter in the ocean. A creature with no interest in harming anything and no tools to do so, even if it wanted to. Manta rays feed almost exclusively on tiny organisms that drift in the water. They are filter feeders, consuming zooplankton, small fish, and microscopic shrimp-like creatures called copepods. To gather these minuscule meals, The manta swims through dense patches of plankton with its enormous mouth wide open, looking like a living net sweeping through the sea. The mouth, positioned at the front of the ray's head rather than underneath like most fish, can open to a width of more than 1 meter. As water rushes in, it carries millions of tiny organisms that get trapped by specialized filtering structures inside the manta's gills. The filtered water then flows out through the gill slits on the underside of the ray's body, while the food remains inside to be swallowed. This method of feeding is effortless and continuous. The manta simply has to swim through productive waters and let the ocean bring food directly to it. On either side of the manta's mouth, 2 long appendages called cephalic fins curl and unfurl like living scrolls. When the manta is cruising calmly, these fins roll up into tight spirals that point forward like horns, which is why mantas are sometimes called devil rays, though there is nothing devilish about them. When feeding time arrives, the cephalic fins unroll and spread outward, creating a funnel that guides plankton-rich water directly into the ray's mouth. This ingenious design increases feeding efficiency dramatically, turning the manta's head into a sophisticated food-gathering system. The cephalic fins can move independently, adjusting their angle and position to direct water flow with precision. Watching a manta feed is like watching a ballet, with the fins sweeping open in graceful arcs, the mouth gaping wide, and the entire body tilting and turning to stay within the thickest clouds of prey. Manta rays often swim in loops and spirals when they encounter especially dense concentrations of food. This behavior, called cyclone feeding, occurs when many rays gather in the same area, all swimming in circles and sometimes even forming chains where one follows another in a continuous spiral. The circular motion keeps them within the plankton cloud, while the combined movement of multiple rays actually concentrates the prey even further. From above, it looks like a slow-motion whirlpool of dark wings rotating through blue water. Each ray takes its turn passing through the center of the spiral, where the food is densest. This cooperative feeding strategy benefits everyone involved, and it shows a level of social awareness that researchers are only beginning to understand. The rays don't compete or fight. They simply share the bounty, swimming in patient circles until they've had their fill. Despite their enormous size, manta rays are remarkably gentle creatures. Divers who encounter them often describe a sense of calm intelligence radiating from these animals. A manta will approach a human slowly, sometimes coming close enough to make eye contact. And there is something deeply moving about looking into the eye of such a massive, yet peaceful being. The manta seems curious rather than afraid, and it may circle around a diver several times before continuing on its way. Some individuals become so comfortable with human presence that they return to the same dive sites year after year, allowing researchers and photographers to document their lives over decades. These encounters feel less like wildlife watching and more like meetings between 2 intelligent species, each taking the measure of the other in the blue stillness of the ocean. The manta ray's brain is the largest of any fish relative to body size. This disproportionately large brain suggests a level of cognitive ability that goes far beyond simple instinct. Research has shown that manta rays can recognize themselves in mirrors, a feat that only a handful of animal species can accomplish, including humans, great apes, dolphins, and a few others. When a manta sees its reflection, it doesn't react as if encountering another ray. Instead, it examines itself, sometimes moving in unusual ways to see how the reflection responds. This indicates self-awareness, an understanding that the image in the mirror is not another creature but a reflection of oneself. Such intelligence is rare in the animal kingdom and speaks to inner lives we are only beginning to comprehend. What thoughts move through the mind of a manta ray as it drifts through the ocean is a question we may never fully answer, but we know those thoughts exist. Manta rays have been observed visiting cleaning stations on coral reefs, where smaller fish provide a grooming service. These cleaning stations are specific locations where certain fish, like wrasses and cleaner shrimp, remove parasites, dead skin, and other debris from larger animals. A manta will approach a cleaning station and slow down, hovering almost motionless in the water while the cleaners go to work. The tiny fish dart over the manta's skin, plucking off parasites and nibbling at patches of algae or dead tissue. The manta remains still, sometimes for many minutes, clearly enjoying the service. This relationship benefits both parties. The cleaners get food, and the manta gets relief from irritation and potential infection. Some manta rays visit the same cleaning stations regularly, establishing routines that suggest memory and planning. They remember where the good cleaners are and return to those spots again and again, sometimes traveling considerable distances to get there. The skin of a manta ray feels rough to the touch, covered in tiny tooth-like scales called dermal denticles. These scales are similar in structure to the teeth in the manta's mouth, each one a miniature anchor-shaped structure that reduces drag as the animal swims. The denticles are arranged in overlapping patterns that channel water smoothly over the ray's body, reducing turbulence and making movement through water more efficient. This natural engineering allows the manta to glide with minimal effort, conserving energy on long journeys. The skin also secretes a thin layer of mucus that provides protection against bacteria and parasites, though this mucus layer is delicate and can be damaged by human touch. This is why respectful divers never reach out to pet a manta ray, no matter how tempting it might be. The oils and bacteria on human skin can harm the ray's protective coating and leave it vulnerable to infection. Each manta ray carries a unique pattern of spots on its belly that serves as a fingerprint. No two mantas have exactly the same arrangement of spots and markings, which allows researchers to identify individuals and track them over time. By photographing the underside of a manta ray, scientists can create a database of known individuals, documenting where they travel, how often they visit certain locations, and how they interact with others of their kind. Some of these identification records span decades, revealing life histories that include migrations, reproductive events, and even injuries that healed over time. The spot patterns remain stable throughout the manta's life, changing little if at all as the years pass. These natural markings have become invaluable tools for conservation, helping researchers understand population sizes, movement patterns, and the health of manta ray communities around the world. Manta rays can leap entirely out of the water in a behavior called breaching. Why they do this remains something of a mystery, though scientists have proposed several theories. Some suggest that breaching helps dislodge parasites that cling to the manta's skin. Others think it might be a form of communication, with the loud splash created by a multi-ton animal hitting the water serving as a signal to other rays nearby. Still others believe it could simply be playful behavior, an expression of joy or energy that has no survival purpose beyond the immediate pleasure of the action. Whatever the reason, watching a manta breach is a spectacular sight. The enormous creature emerges from the water in what seems like slow motion, its wings spread wide, water streaming from its body. For a moment, it hangs in the air, impossibly large and impossibly graceful. Then gravity reclaims it, and it crashes back into the ocean with a sound like thunder and a splash that can be seen from a great distance. The eyes of a manta ray sit on the sides of its head, giving it a wide field of vision. Each eye can move independently, allowing the manta to watch in multiple directions at once. This is particularly useful for spotting both predators and prey, while navigating complex reef environments. The eyes themselves are relatively small compared to the manta's overall size, but they are sophisticated organs capable of detecting movement, shape, and perhaps even color. Behind each eye is a spiracle, a small opening that allows water to flow over the gills, even when the manta's mouth is closed. This means the ray can breathe without swimming, allowing it to rest on the ocean floor or hover motionless at a cleaning station. The combination of mobile eyes and passive breathing makes the manta an efficient observer of its surroundings, always watching, always aware, yet never seeming rushed or anxious. Manta rays are ovoviviparous, which means they give birth to live young rather than laying eggs. Inside the mother's body, eggs develop and hatch, and the baby rays continue to grow until they are large enough to survive on their own. When the time comes, the mother gives birth to one or occasionally two pups, each already fully formed and ready to swim. The newborn manta ray emerges wrapped in a thin membrane that quickly falls away, and within moments, the pup is swimming independently. At birth, a manta ray pup already measures about 1 meter across, roughly the size of a large serving platter. The mother provides no parental care. After birth, the pup must immediately begin its life alone, feeding on plankton and avoiding predators. This strategy of producing just one or two large, well-developed offspring means that each baby has a better chance of survival than if the mother produced many small, vulnerable young. The gestation period for a manta ray lasts about 12 to 13 months. During this time, the developing embryo receives nourishment from a yolk sac and then from a fluid produced by the mother's uterus. This extended pregnancy allows the pup to grow large and strong before entering the world. Female manta rays reproduce infrequently, typically giving birth only once every 2 to 5 years. This slow reproductive rate makes manta ray populations vulnerable to overfishing and habitat loss, as they cannot quickly replace individuals that are killed or injured. Conservation efforts have become increasingly important as human activities put pressure on manta ray populations around the globe. Protecting these animals means protecting not just individual rays but entire ocean ecosystems that depend on the presence of healthy, stable populations of large filter feeders. Manta rays can live for 40 years or more in the wild, perhaps even longer. Scientists have only recently begun to understand the full lifespan of these animals, as tracking them over such long periods requires decades of consistent observation. Some individual mantas have been photographed and identified over spans of 20 or 30 years, still appearing healthy and active in their known habitats. The slow growth rate, late maturity, and long lifespan all contribute to the manta's vulnerability. A female manta may not reach sexual maturity until she is 8 to 10 years old, and even then, she will produce only a few offspring over the course of her life. This life history strategy works well in stable environments where food is plentiful and predators are few, but it makes manta rays particularly susceptible to human-caused threats. Each individual lost represents years of growth and potential reproduction that cannot easily be replaced. The gill rakers inside a manta ray's mouth are highly specialized structures that trap food particles while allowing water to flow through. These rakers are covered in tiny, sticky protrusions that increase the surface area available for capturing plankton. As water passes through, zooplankton and other small organisms stick to the gill rakers like dust on a filter. The manta then swallows these accumulated particles in regular intervals, effectively eating from its own internal collection plates. This system is incredibly efficient, allowing the manta to extract food from water that appears almost empty to the human eye. Even in areas where plankton seems sparse, a manta can gather enough nourishment to sustain its enormous body. The gill rakers require occasional cleaning, which is part of why mantas visit cleaning stations. The cleaner fish help remove debris that clogs the rakers and reduces feeding efficiency. Manta rays produce sounds that are inaudible to human ears without special equipment. These low-frequency sounds may serve as communication between individuals, though the exact purpose remains unclear. Researchers using underwater microphones have recorded clicks, pops, and rumbling noises emanating from groups of manta rays. Whether these sounds convey specific information such as the location of food or the presence of danger, or simply help individuals keep track of each other in murky water, is still a subject of study. The ocean is far from silent, and manta rays navigate a soundscape filled with the calls of whales, the snaps of shrimp, and the groans of shifting ice in polar regions. Adding their own voices to this chorus suggests that sound plays a more important role in manta ray life than we previously understood. When threatened, a manta ray's primary defense is simply to swim away. The powerful strokes of its pectoral fins can propel it through the water with surprising speed when necessary. Though they typically move with leisurely grace, Mantas are capable of quick bursts of speed that carry them away from danger. Their large size also offers protection. Adult manta rays have few natural predators. Sharks occasionally attack young or injured mantas, and orcas have been known to prey on them in certain regions, but healthy adult mantas are generally left alone. Their lack of stinger or venom means they cannot fight back against attackers, so avoidance becomes the only strategy. This has shaped the manta's entire approach to life. Rather than evolving weapons, they evolved size, speed, and intelligence, becoming creatures that glide through the ocean like living dreams, too quick to catch and too large to challenge. Manta rays often swim near the surface of the ocean, especially when feeding on plankton that congregates in the upper layers of water. This surface feeding makes them visible to observers on boats and shores, and it also makes them vulnerable to collisions with vessels. Boat strikes are a significant threat to manta ray populations in areas with heavy marine traffic. A manta swimming just below the surface may not see or hear an approaching boat until it's too late, and the collision can cause serious injury or death. Propeller wounds are a common sight on mantas in busy coastal areas, with scarred wings and damaged fins telling stories of close encounters with human machinery. Conservation efforts increasingly focus on creating protected areas where boat traffic is restricted, and on educating boaters about how to navigate safely in waters frequented by manta rays. The coloration of a manta ray typically includes a dark dorsal surface and a lighter ventral surface, a pattern called countershading. When viewed from above, the dark back blends with the deep water below, making the manta harder to spot. When viewed from below, the pale belly blends with the bright surface of the ocean, again providing camouflage. This coloration pattern is common among marine animals and offers protection from predators approaching from any angle. However, manta rays exhibit considerable variation in their markings. Some have chevron patterns on their backs, while others have large white patches or spots. These individual variations make each manta unique, contributing to the spot patterns that researchers use for identification. The exact purpose of these varied markings is not fully understood. They may serve social functions, helping rays recognize each other, or they may simply be random variations with no particular advantage. Manta rays sometimes travel in small groups, though they are not strictly social animals in the way dolphins or primates are. These aggregations often form around abundant food sources, or at cleaning stations where multiple rays gather to be groomed. The groups are loose and temporary, with individuals coming and going as they please. There is little evidence of complex social hierarchies or long-term bonds between most individuals, though some research suggests that certain rays may prefer the company of specific companions. The sight of several manta rays swimming together, their wings beating in a synchronized rhythm, creates a mesmerizing spectacle. They move like a squadron of stealth aircraft, silent and coordinated, each one maintaining its position relative to the others through some invisible communication. These gatherings provide researchers with valuable opportunities to observe interactions and document multiple individuals at once. The heart of a manta ray is a two-chambered organ that pumps blood through a simple circulatory system. Unlike mammals, which have four-chambered hearts, fish hearts are more basic in structure, yet they perform the essential task of moving blood throughout the body efficiently. The manta's heart must work harder than that of a typical fish because the manta is so large and active. Blood flows from the heart to the gills, where it picks up oxygen from the water passing over the gill filaments. The oxygenated blood then travels to the rest of the body, delivering oxygen to muscles and organs before returning to the heart to complete the cycle. This system is remarkably efficient, allowing the manta to maintain its active lifestyle without the high metabolic costs that warm-blooded animals must pay. The slow, steady beat of the manta's heart matches the rhythm of its swimming, calm, consistent, and perfectly adapted to a life spent gliding through tropical seas. Manta rays are found in all the world's major oceans, from the Caribbean to the Indo-Pacific. They prefer areas with high biological productivity, where upwelling currents bring nutrients from the deep ocean to the surface. These nutrient-rich waters support massive blooms of phytoplankton, which in turn support zooplankton, which in turn support manta rays. Seamounts, underwater mountains that rise from the ocean floor, are particularly important manta ray habitat. The currents that flow around seamounts concentrate plankton, creating reliable feeding grounds that mantas visit regularly. Coral reefs also provide essential habitat, offering cleaning stations and shelter from strong currents. The distribution of manta rays is closely tied to water temperature. They avoid cold water and are most commonly found in regions where the sea surface temperature remains warm year-round. As climate change alters ocean temperatures and current patterns, the future distribution of manta rays may shift, with populations moving toward the poles or changing their migration routes. The scientific name for the giant oceanic manta ray is Mobula birostris, though it was formerly known as Manta birostris, before being reclassified into the Mobula genus alongside its smaller relatives. The name Mobula comes from Latin, relating to movement, and birostris refers to the two horn-like cephalic fins that characterize these animals. The reef manta ray, slightly smaller and more coastal, is called Mobula alfredi. These scientific names help researchers communicate precisely about which species they are discussing, as the common name manta ray can refer to either species or to both collectively. The reclassification of mantas into the Mobula genus reflects advances in genetic research that revealed closer relationships between mantas and devil rays than previously thought. These taxonomic details may seem dry, but they represent our evolving understanding of how life on Earth is organized and related. Each species a thread in a vast web of evolutionary history. Manta rays navigate across vast stretches of open ocean, using mechanisms that scientists are still working to understand fully. Some research suggests they may use Earth's magnetic field to orient themselves, detecting subtle variations that provide directional information. Other studies indicate that mantas may follow gradients of temperature or salinity, using their sensitive skin to detect environmental cues invisible to humans. They might also navigate by following underwater topography or by tracking the positions of seamounts and islands through some form of spatial memory. Long-distance movements have been documented through satellite tagging studies, with some individuals traveling hundreds or even thousands of kilometers between feeding and mating areas. These journeys take them across featureless expanses of open ocean, where there are no obvious landmarks. Yet they arrive at their destinations with apparent precision. The navigation abilities of manta rays, like so much about these animals, remain partially mysterious, inviting further research and wonder. The pectoral fins of a manta ray contain a complex arrangement of muscles and cartilaginous supports called radials. These radials fan out from the ray's body like the ribs of an umbrella, providing structure while remaining flexible. The muscles that control the fins are layered and interwoven, allowing for fine control over every part of the wing's surface. This anatomical complexity enables the manta to perform the remarkable swimming motions that make it so distinctive. The fins can bend, twist, and undulate in ways that create lift, thrust, and turning force, all while maintaining an appearance of effortless grace. Engineers studying manta rays have gained insights into underwater propulsion, and some experimental underwater vehicles now mimic the manta's swimming motion. These bio-inspired designs demonstrate how nature has already solved many of the engineering challenges humans face, developing elegant solutions over millions of years of trial and error. Manta rays occasionally exhibit behavior that researchers describe as playful. They have been observed swimming through bubble streams created by divers, repeatedly passing through the rising column of air, as if enjoying the sensation. They also sometimes approach boats and swim alongside them, pacing the vessel for several minutes before veering away. Whether these behaviors constitute play in the sense that we understand it, activity engaged in purely for enjoyment, or serve some other purpose, is difficult to determine. What is clear is that manta rays display curiosity and seem to seek out novel experiences. This curiosity brings them into contact with humans more often than many marine animals, creating opportunities for education and fostering appreciation for ocean conservation. Each playful encounter between a human and a manta ray has the potential to transform someone's understanding of marine life, turning abstract concern about the ocean into personal connection with a specific, intelligent creature. The mucus layer on a manta ray's skin contains compounds that may have antibiotic properties. Researchers studying this mucus have found substances that inhibit bacterial growth, suggesting that the manta's slime coat serves not just as a physical barrier, but as a chemical defense against infection. This discovery has potential applications in human medicine, as scientists search for new antibiotics to combat drug-resistant bacteria. The ocean has long been a source of medical compounds, from painkillers derived from cone snails to anti-cancer drugs extracted from sea sponges. The manta ray's mucus is simply the latest example of how marine organisms have evolved sophisticated chemical defenses that might benefit humanity. Of course, this also highlights the importance of preserving manta ray populations. Each species lost potentially takes with it compounds and genetic information that could have been valuable to science and medicine. Manta rays are sometimes seen rolling at the surface, turning completely upside down and righting themselves repeatedly. This behavior may help dislodge parasites, or could be related to thermoregulation. With the ray exposing different parts of its body to cooler or warmer water, it might also serve a digestive function, helping the ray process the enormous volumes of plankton it consumes. The true purpose may vary depending on context, with mantas rolling for different reasons at different times. Observers describe these surface rolls as hypnotic to watch, with the ray's white belly flashing in the sunlight before disappearing again as the animal rotates. The splashing and movement can sometimes attract seabirds, which investigate hoping for a meal, though the manta ray offers them nothing. It simply continues its rolling motion, lost in whatever sensation or need drives the behavior, while the birds circle above and eventually fly away in search of more promising opportunities. The digestive system of a manta ray is relatively simple, consisting of a short intestine that processes food quickly. Because plankton is easy to digest, mostly soft-bodied organisms with minimal hard parts, the ray's digestive tract doesn't need to be particularly long or complex. Food moves through the system rapidly, and waste is expelled frequently. This efficient digestion allows the manta to process large volumes of food without spending excessive energy on the digestive process itself. The rapid throughput also means that a manta must feed regularly to maintain its energy levels. A ray swimming through productive waters may feed almost continuously for hours, gulping plankton-rich water in endless mouthfuls. During lean times, when plankton is scarce, mantas may travel long distances, searching for better feeding grounds, or may simply rest more and conserve energy until conditions improve. Young manta rays grow quickly in their first few years of life, adding significant wingspan as they transition from vulnerable juveniles to more secure subadults. The growth rate slows as they mature, and once they reach adult size, growth nearly stops. This growth pattern is typical of many large marine animals: rapid development early in life when predation risk is highest, then a plateau once the animal reaches a size that offers protection. Throughout their lives, manta rays shed and replace their dermal denticles, maintaining the smooth, drag-reducing surface of their skin. Old scales fall away and new ones grow in, a continuous process of renewal that keeps the ray's hydrodynamic coating in optimal condition. This ongoing replacement means that even old mantas maintain the same sleek efficiency as younger individuals, gliding through the water with the same ease they enjoyed in youth. Manta rays have been observed swimming in what researchers call a formation, where multiple individuals position themselves one behind another in a line. This behavior typically occurs when traveling between locations rather than during feeding. The rays space themselves evenly, each one following in the slipstream of the one ahead. This formation swimming may reduce drag for the trailing individuals, allowing them to conserve energy on long journeys. The lead position rotates among group members, so no single ray bears the burden of breaking the water's resistance for extended periods. From a distance, a formation of manta rays looks like a train of dark shapes gliding through blue water, each one perfectly aligned with its neighbor. The coordination required suggests some form of communication, or at least acute awareness of each other's positions and movements. These formations dissolve when the group reaches its destination, and the rays spread out to feed or rest individually. The eyes of a manta ray lack eyelids, so the ray cannot blink or close its eyes to protect them. Instead, the eyes can retract slightly into the head when threatened, and a thin, nictitating membrane may provide some protection. This membrane is translucent rather than opaque, allowing the ray to see even when the membrane is in place. The constant exposure of the eyes to seawater means they must be resistant to irritation and infection. And indeed, the eye's surface is covered with a protective layer that prevents most damage. Manta rays rarely suffer eye injuries, despite living in environments filled with sharp coral, rough rocks, and aggressive parasites. The eyes remain clear and functional throughout the ray's life, providing the sensory input needed to navigate, feed, and interact with other members of their species. Manta rays possess specialized organs called ampullae of Lorenzini, which are electroreceptors capable of detecting the faint electrical fields produced by living organisms. These organs appear as tiny pores scattered across the ray's head and underside, particularly concentrated near the mouth. Every muscle contraction in a living body produces a small electrical signal, and the ampullae of Lorenzini can sense these signals even when the organism itself is hidden from view. This ability allows manta rays to detect concentrations of zooplankton even in murky water where visibility is poor. It may also help them sense the presence of predators approaching from behind or below, providing an early warning system that complements their vision. The ampullae of Lorenzini are shared by all cartilaginous fish, sharks, rays, and skates, and represent one of the most sophisticated sensory systems in the animal kingdom. The liver of a manta ray is large and oil-rich, helping the animal maintain neutral buoyancy in the water. Unlike bony fish, which have swim bladders filled with gas, cartilaginous fish rely on oil stored in their livers to keep from sinking. The manta's liver produces oils that are less dense than seawater, providing lift that counteracts the weight of the ray's body. This system works well but requires the ray to maintain its liver size and oil content through regular feeding. A manta that goes too long without food may begin to lose buoyancy as its liver shrinks, making swimming more energetically expensive. The liver also plays a role in detoxification, filtering impurities from the blood and helping the ray cope with environmental toxins. Unfortunately, this means that pollutants accumulate in the liver tissue, and mantas living in contaminated waters may carry high levels of heavy metals and other harmful substances. Manta rays are known to visit specific locations during certain seasons, suggesting migratory patterns tied to environmental conditions. In some regions, large aggregations of mantas appear predictably when water temperatures rise or when seasonal upwelling brings nutrients to the surface. These aggregations can include dozens or even hundreds of individual rays, all gathering in the same relatively small area. The reasons for these seasonal gatherings are not fully understood, but likely relate to feeding and mating opportunities. After weeks or months, the aggregations disperse, and the rays scatter to other areas. Tracking studies have shown that some individuals return to the same aggregation sites year after year, demonstrating site fidelity and long-term memory. The predictability of these gatherings makes them valuable for research and for ecotourism, allowing people to reliably encounter manta rays in the wild. The skeleton of a manta ray, being made of cartilage rather than bone, does not fossilize easily. As a result, the fossil record for manta rays and their relatives is sparse and difficult to interpret. Most of what we know about ray evolution comes from fossilized teeth and dermal denticles, which are harder and more likely to be preserved than soft cartilage. These fragmentary remains suggest that rays have been swimming in Earth's oceans for at least 100 million years, surviving multiple mass extinction events that wiped out countless other species. The basic body plan of rays, flat, winged, and bottom-dwelling, has proven remarkably successful over geological time. Manta rays represent a more recent refinement of this ancient design, adapting the ray body for life in open water and specializing in filter feeding rather than the bottom-feeding lifestyle of most other rays. Manta rays sometimes associate with other species in relationships that benefit both parties. Small fish called remoras attach themselves to manta rays using specialized sucker discs on their heads. The remora gets free transportation and access to food scraps that the manta drops while feeding. In return, the remora may remove parasites from the manta's skin, providing a cleaning service similar to that offered by cleaner fish at cleaning stations. Some mantas carry several remoras at once, scattered across their bellies and backs like hitchhiking companions. The remoras detach when the manta visits a cleaning station, allowing the cleaner fish to work unimpeded, then reattach when the cleaning session is complete. This three-way relationship, manta, remora, and cleaner fish, demonstrates the interconnectedness of ocean life, where no creature exists in isolation, but instead participates in a web of interactions and dependencies. The respiratory system of a manta ray extracts oxygen from water with impressive efficiency. As water flows over the gills, oxygen diffuses across thin membranes into the blood, while carbon dioxide diffuses out. The gill filaments provide an enormous surface area for this gas exchange, and the blood vessels in the gills are arranged to maximize oxygen uptake. This counter-current exchange system, where blood flows in the opposite direction to water, ensures that even oxygen-poor water leaving the gills still contains less oxygen than the blood, maintaining the concentration gradient that drives diffusion. This allows the manta to extract a high percentage of available oxygen from each volume of water passing through its gills. In well-oxygenated tropical waters, the manta's respiratory system works easily, but if oxygen levels drop due to pollution or algal blooms, the ray may struggle to breathe and must move to healthier waters or risk suffocation. Manta rays can alter their swimming speed dramatically depending on circumstances. When cruising casually, they move at about 1 to 2 meters per second, a leisurely pace that conserves energy. When feeding, they may slow even further, hovering almost motionless in dense plankton patches. But when threatened or excited, a manta can accelerate to speeds exceeding 5 meters per second, though they rarely sustain such speeds for long. The wing beat frequency increases during fast swimming, with the powerful pectoral fins flapping more rapidly to generate greater thrust. Even at top speed, the manta maintains its characteristic grace, the body flexing smoothly and the wings beating in coordinated waves. This ability to shift gears allows the manta to be both an efficient long-distance traveler and an effective escape artist when danger approaches. The population structure of manta rays varies by location, with some areas supporting resident populations that stay year-round, and others serving as seasonal gathering points for migratory individuals. Genetic studies have revealed that oceanic mantas can travel thousands of kilometers, leading to genetic mixing between distant populations. Reef mantas, by contrast, show more genetic structure, with populations in different regions being more genetically distinct from each other. This suggests that reef mantas are less likely to undertake long-distance migrations and more likely to spend their entire lives within a relatively small home range. Understanding these population structures is crucial for conservation, as it helps determine whether a population decline in one area represents a local problem or part of a broader pattern. It also helps identify which populations are most vulnerable to local threats and which might receive migrants from healthier populations elsewhere. Manta rays have a relatively low metabolic rate for their size, meaning they require less food energy per kilogram of body weight than many other large animals. This metabolic efficiency is partly due to their cartilaginous skeleton, which is lighter and requires less energy to maintain than bone, and partly due to their ectothermic physiology, which doesn't waste energy on maintaining a constant body temperature. A manta ray's body temperature matches the surrounding water, rising and falling with ambient conditions. This makes the manta vulnerable to temperature extremes but also means it doesn't burn calories just to stay warm. The low metabolic rate allows mantas to survive on a diet of tiny plankton. Despite their enormous size, they simply need less fuel than a warm-blooded animal of comparable dimensions would require. The cultural significance of manta rays varies around the world, with different societies interpreting these creatures in different ways. In some Pacific Island cultures, manta rays are respected as powerful spirits of the ocean, deserving of reverence and protection. Stories and legends feature mantas as guides for navigators or as shapeshifters with connections to the spirit world. In other cultures, mantas have been feared or hunted, their size and appearance inspiring superstition rather than admiration. Modern conservation efforts work to shift cultural attitudes toward protection, emphasizing the manta's intelligence, gentleness, and ecological importance. Ecotourism has proven particularly effective in changing perceptions when communities benefit economically from living mantas swimming in their waters. The motivation to protect them increases dramatically. A single manta ray can generate hundreds of thousands of dollars in tourism revenue over its lifetime, far exceeding the one-time value of a killed ray. Manta rays have been victims of targeted fisheries in various parts of the world, harvested for their gill rakers, which are used in traditional Chinese medicine. These gill rakers are dried and sold as a supposed health tonic, despite having no proven medicinal benefits. The demand for gill rakers has driven significant population declines in some regions, with thousands of mantas killed annually at the peak of the trade. International regulations have been enacted to protect manta rays, including listings under CITES that restrict international trade in manta parts. Many countries have also established national protections, making it illegal to kill or export mantas. These conservation measures have helped slow population declines, but enforcement remains challenging, particularly in remote areas where fishing activity is difficult to monitor. The long-term survival of manta rays depends on continued vigilance and on efforts to reduce demand for their body parts. The blood of a manta ray contains hemoglobin similar to that found in human blood, though with structural differences that adapt it to the ray's marine environment. This hemoglobin binds oxygen in the gills and releases it in the tissues, just as human hemoglobin does. The efficiency of this system allows the manta to remain active even in waters where oxygen levels fluctuate. The blood also contains immune cells that defend against pathogens, though the manta's immune system is less well understood than that of mammals. Manta rays can survive injuries that would be fatal to many animals, healing from shark bites, propeller wounds, and other trauma over the course of weeks or months. The mechanisms behind this healing ability are subjects of ongoing research, as understanding how mantas repair damaged tissue could have implications for human medicine. Manta rays have been kept in aquariums. Though the practice is controversial and challenging, the enormous size of adult mantas makes them suitable only for the largest facilities, and even then, the restricted space can lead to stress and health problems. Some aquariums have successfully maintained reef mantas for years, providing educational opportunities for visitors who might never encounter these animals in the wild. The mantas adapt to captivity to varying degrees, learning to accept hand-fed food and tolerating human presence. However, many conservation advocates argue that the educational benefits do not justify the confinement of such wide-ranging, intelligent animals. The debate continues, with proponents pointing to increased public awareness and research opportunities, and opponents emphasizing the ethical concerns of keeping large marine animals in artificial environments. Most conservationists agree that protecting mantas in the wild should be the priority, with captive animals serving primarily as ambassadors to inspire protection of wild populations. The taxonomy of manta rays has undergone revision in recent years, as genetic analysis has provided new insights into their relationships with other species. What was once considered a single species of manta ray is now recognized as two distinct species: the giant oceanic manta and the reef manta. These species differ in size, habitat preference, and genetic makeup, though they share similar appearances and behaviors. Further research may reveal additional cryptic species populations that look similar, but are genetically distinct and reproductively isolated from each other. Each taxonomic revision refines our understanding of manta ray diversity and helps ensure that conservation efforts protect all distinct lineages. The discovery of new species or populations highlights how much we still have to learn about ocean life, even for relatively large and conspicuous animals like manta rays. Manta rays play an important role in nutrient cycling within ocean ecosystems. As they feed on plankton near the surface and excrete waste products throughout their range, they help redistribute nutrients that might otherwise remain concentrated in specific areas. Their feces contains nitrogen, phosphorus, and other essential elements that support phytoplankton growth, creating a feedback loop where mantas help fertilize the very plankton they feed upon. This role as nutrient cyclers means that mantas contribute to overall ocean productivity, supporting not just their own populations, but entire food webs. The loss of manta rays from an ecosystem could therefore have cascading effects, potentially reducing productivity and altering community structure in ways that are difficult to predict. The acoustic environment of the ocean is important to manta rays, though we are only beginning to understand how they perceive and respond to sound. Mantas can detect vibrations and pressure changes in the water, which may serve as a form of hearing. They can sense the low-frequency sounds produced by earthquakes, storms, and even large ships passing through the ocean. Increasing noise pollution from shipping, military sonar, and industrial activities may interfere with the manta's ability to communicate and navigate. Studies on other marine animals have shown that noise pollution can cause stress, disrupt behavior, and even cause physical harm in extreme cases. The extent to which mantas are affected by underwater noise remains an open question, but protecting quiet ocean habitats may be important for their long-term survival. Manta rays sometimes gather in areas where ocean currents converge, creating zones of increased productivity. These convergence zones concentrate plankton along visible lines on the ocean surface, and mantas patrol these lines, feeding continuously as they go. The rays may swim back and forth along a convergence for hours, taking advantage of the abundant food supply. These predictable feeding opportunities draw mantas from surrounding areas, sometimes creating temporary aggregations of dozens of individuals. The convergence zones shift with changing currents and winds, and the mantas must track these movements to maintain access to food. This requires environmental awareness and navigational ability, as the rays follow invisible cues to find and exploit ephemeral resources scattered across vast expanses of ocean. The bond between manta rays and the ocean is absolute. They cannot survive out of water for more than a few minutes. Unlike some marine mammals that can haul out on land or some fish that can breathe air, the manta is entirely dependent on the aquatic environment. Its gills collapse in air, making breathing impossible, and its body weight, normally supported by water, crushes internal organs when unsupported. If a manta accidentally beaches itself, death comes quickly, unless it can return to the water. This total dependence on the ocean means that protecting marine habitats is equivalent to protecting manta rays themselves. There is no backup plan, no alternative environment where mantas might survive if the ocean becomes uninhabitable. Their fate is tied to the health of the seas, and their presence serves as an indicator of ocean ecosystem integrity. Manta rays occasionally visit estuaries and coastal lagoons, where fresh water mixes with salt water. These brackish environments support different communities of plankton than fully marine waters, providing alternative food sources for adaptable mantas. The salinity gradients in these areas fluctuate with tides and rainfall, and mantas must tolerate these changing conditions to exploit the resources available. Not all individuals enter brackish waters, suggesting that this behavior may be learned or practiced only by certain populations. The ability to exploit multiple habitat types gives mantas flexibility in their feeding strategies, allowing them to take advantage of seasonal or local abundance wherever it occurs. The conservation status of manta rays is currently listed as vulnerable or endangered, depending on the species and region. Both species have experienced significant population declines due to targeted fishing, bycatch, and habitat degradation. International conservation agreements provide some protection, but implementation varies widely between countries. Some nations have established marine protected areas, specifically designed to safeguard important manta ray habitats, including feeding grounds, cleaning stations, and known aggregation sites. These protected areas prohibit fishing and limit other human activities that might disturb the rays. Ecotourism in these protected zones generates revenue that supports local economies and provides incentive for continued conservation. Success stories from places like Hawaii, the Maldives, and Indonesia demonstrate that manta ray populations can stabilize and even recover when given adequate protection. The relationship between water temperature and manta ray behavior is complex and not fully understood. While mantas are found in tropical and subtropical waters, suggesting a preference for warmth, they also dive to considerable depths, where temperatures are much colder. These deep dives may serve specific purposes such as feeding on deep-dwelling plankton layers or avoiding surface predators. The mantas somehow manage the temperature transition, moving from warm surface waters to frigid depths without apparent distress. Whether they have physiological adaptations that help them cope with temperature changes or simply tolerate brief exposure to cold water remains unclear. As climate change warms ocean surface temperatures, the thermal environment available to mantas is shifting, potentially affecting their distribution, behavior, and reproductive success in ways that scientists are working to predict and understand. Manta rays have inspired artwork, folklore, and scientific curiosity for centuries, though accurate understanding of their biology is relatively recent. Early descriptions of manta rays often portrayed them as dangerous monsters, capable of swallowing ships or dragging swimmers to their deaths. These myths persisted for generations, fueled by the manta's size and the mysterious nature of the deep ocean. Only in the modern era, with the advent of scuba diving and underwater photography, have people been able to observe mantas in their natural habitat and discover their true nature as gentle giants. This shift in understanding has transformed the manta from monster to marvel, from something to fear into something to protect. The change in human perception demonstrates how knowledge dispels fear and how direct experience with nature can foster conservation ethics. The muscular system of a manta ray is adapted for sustained swimming rather than explosive bursts of speed. The pectoral fin muscles contain fibers that resist fatigue, allowing the ray to swim continuously for hours without rest. These muscles are metabolically efficient, extracting maximum energy from each unit of food consumed. The blood supply to the muscles is rich and extensive, ensuring adequate oxygen delivery even during prolonged activity. This muscular endurance allows mantas to undertake long-distance migrations and to spend entire days swimming through plankton blooms without pausing. The muscles themselves are pale in color, compared to the dark red muscle tissue of highly active fish like tuna, reflecting differences in metabolic strategy and activity patterns. Manta rays have been photographed and filmed extensively by underwater photographers and filmmakers, becoming iconic subjects in nature documentaries and conservation campaigns. The dramatic appearance of a manta ray, with its enormous wingspan and graceful movements, makes it a compelling subject that captures public attention. These images and films have played a crucial role in raising awareness about manta rays and the threats they face. Many people who will never have the opportunity to see a manta ray in person can still appreciate their beauty and understand their importance through visual media. This indirect connection to the animals builds public support for conservation measures and helps generate political will to protect marine environments. In this way, the manta ray's photogenic qualities have become assets in the fight for their survival. The seasonal movements of manta rays are gradually being mapped through satellite tagging studies that track individual rays over months or years. These studies have revealed complex migration patterns, with some rays traveling along coastlines while others venture far into open ocean. The triggers for these migrations appear to include changing water temperatures, seasonal plankton blooms, and reproductive cycles. Some migrations cover thousands of kilometers, taking rays from tropical to subtropical regions and back again. Other individuals remain relatively sedentary, staying within a limited home range year-round. This variation in movement patterns suggests that manta ray populations include both resident and migratory components, with individuals adopting different strategies based on local conditions, genetics, or learned behaviors. Understanding these movement patterns is essential for effective conservation, as protection must extend beyond individual sites to encompass entire migration routes. Manta rays occasionally exhibit wound-healing abilities that amaze researchers and veterinarians. Severe injuries, including deep gashes from shark bites or propeller strikes, can heal over time, leaving scars but not compromising the ray's ability to swim and feed. The healing process is relatively slow, taking months for major wounds to close completely, but the fact that it occurs at all in wild animals living in bacteria-rich ocean water is remarkable. The wounds generally do not become infected, suggesting that the manta's immune system and mucus layer provide effective protection against pathogens. Some healed injuries leave permanent reminders, missing pieces of fin, altered body contours, distinctive scars that become part of the individual's identification pattern, visible in photographs for the rest of the ray's life. The genetic diversity within manta ray populations is an important consideration for conservation. Populations with low genetic diversity are more vulnerable to disease, environmental change, and inbreeding depression. Genetic studies have revealed that some manta ray populations have worryingly low diversity, likely due to overfishing that reduced population sizes to critically low levels. These bottleneck events leave lasting marks on the genetic makeup of populations, and recovery is slow even if the population numbers rebound. Maintaining genetic diversity requires protecting enough individuals across a wide enough geographic range to preserve the variety of genes present in the species. This is particularly challenging for slow-reproducing animals like mantas, where each generation takes years to mature and produce offspring. Conservation genetics has become a crucial tool in monitoring population health and guiding management decisions. The presence of manta rays in an area often indicates a healthy, productive marine ecosystem. Because mantas feed on plankton, which forms the base of oceanic food webs, abundant mantas suggest abundant plankton, which in turn suggests healthy nutrient cycling and appropriate oceanographic conditions. Conversely, the disappearance of mantas from areas where they were once common signals ecosystem degradation and should prompt investigation into underlying causes. Mantas thus serve as indicator species, their presence or absence providing information about the overall state of marine environments. Monitoring manta ray populations can help identify environmental problems early, allowing intervention before damage becomes irreversible. This ecological role adds another layer of importance to manta ray conservation. Protecting them helps protect entire ecosystems and all the species those ecosystems support. Manta rays possess a sense of touch, distributed across their entire body surface, with particular sensitivity around the mouth and cephalic fins. These touch receptors allow the ray to feel changes in water pressure, detect contact with objects or other animals, and sense the texture of surfaces they encounter. When a manta investigates something new, it may brush against it gently with its wingtips or cephalic fins, gathering tactile information to supplement what its eyes and other senses tell it. This sense of touch likely plays a role in social interactions as well, with rays occasionally making contact with each other during courtship or group swimming. The skin's sensitivity means that rough handling by humans can be uncomfortable or even painful for the ray. Another reason why responsible wildlife viewing practices discourage touching these animals, despite the temptation to make physical contact with such a magnificent creature. The mouth of a manta ray, when fully opened during feeding, creates a cavernous opening that can measure more than 1 meter wide. Water rushes into this opening at considerable volume, carrying with it countless tiny organisms that will become the ray's meal. The inside of the mouth is smooth and dark, lined with tissue that guides water toward the gill rakers. There are no teeth in the traditional sense. Manta rays have only small, vestigial teeth that serve no function in feeding. The absence of functional teeth reflects the manta's specialized diet of soft-bodied plankton that requires no chewing or tearing. The mouth closes periodically to swallow accumulated food, then opens again to continue filtering. This rhythmic opening and closing continues as long as the ray remains in productive waters, creating a steady flow of water and food through the animal's body. Manta rays have been observed at depths exceeding 1,000 meters, far below the sunlit surface waters, where they are most commonly seen. These deep dives take them into a realm of perpetual darkness, cold temperatures, and crushing pressure. Why mantas venture into these depths remains somewhat mysterious. Some researchers believe they may be following deep scattering layers, concentrations of zooplankton and small fish that migrate vertically in the water column, rising toward the surface at night and descending to depth during the day. Others suggest the dives may serve thermoregulatory purposes or help the rays avoid predators. The physiological adaptations that allow mantas to withstand the pressure changes involved in diving hundreds of meters are not fully understood, but their cartilaginous bodies may be more flexible and pressure-tolerant than the gas-filled swim bladders of bony fish. The gill slits of a manta ray appear as 5 parallel openings on the underside of the body, through which filtered water exits after passing over the gills. These slits are clearly visible when viewing a manta from below, appearing as dark lines against the pale belly. The slits open and close slightly with the rhythm of the ray's breathing, flexing with each intake and expulsion of water. The efficiency of the gill system allows the manta to extract sufficient oxygen even from relatively oxygen-poor water, though they prefer well-oxygenated environments when available. The gills are delicate structures, vulnerable to damage from pollution, disease, and parasites, and maintaining gill health is crucial for the ray's survival. Damage to the gills impairs breathing and can lead to suffocation, making gill-related injuries particularly serious. Manta rays sometimes swim upside down, exposing their white bellies to the surface. This inverted swimming may help them feed on plankton concentrated just below the surface, or it may be related to thermoregulation, allowing the ray to expose different parts of its body to sunlight or cooler water. The ray can swim upside down as easily as right side up, its flexible body adapting to either orientation without difficulty. When inverted, the gill slits face upward, and the expelled water creates visible disturbances on the surface. Observers watching from boats see these surface boils and know a manta is feeding just below. The ease with which mantas maneuver in 3 dimensions demonstrates their mastery of the marine environment and their freedom from the constraints that gravity imposes on terrestrial animals. The earliest descriptions of manta rays by European explorers and naturalists often mixed observation with superstition, creating accounts that were part accurate and part fantastical. These historical documents provide insight into how perceptions of marine life have evolved over centuries. Early naturalists correctly noted the manta's size, shape, and filter-feeding behavior, but they often ascribed malicious intent or supernatural abilities to the animals. As scientific understanding advanced, these myths were gradually replaced with factual knowledge based on systematic observation and study. Today's understanding of manta rays is vastly more accurate and detailed than anything available to naturalists of previous centuries. Yet many questions remain unanswered, ensuring that future generations of researchers will continue to discover new aspects of manta ray biology and behavior. Manta rays produce very little waste compared to their body size, a testament to their efficient digestion and nutrient extraction. The waste they do produce is expelled as a fine, cloudy suspension that quickly disperses in the water. This waste contains nitrogen compounds, phosphorus, and trace elements that become available for uptake by phytoplankton, supporting primary production at the base of the food web. In this way, the manta participates in nutrient recycling, linking the planktonic realm where it feeds to the broader ecosystem. The efficiency of the manta's digestive system means that very little of what it consumes is wasted. Nearly all the energy and nutrients in its food are extracted and utilized, supporting the ray's metabolism, growth, and reproductive efforts. The pattern of blood vessels in a manta ray's wings becomes visible when the ray is backlit by sunlight, creating an intricate network of lines that branch and converge like the veins in a leaf. These vessels carry oxygenated blood from the gills to the wing muscles and return deoxygenated blood to the heart. The delicate tracery of vessels highlights the living nature of the manta's wings, which are not merely flaps of tissue but complex organs filled with muscle, nerve, and circulatory structures. Damage to major blood vessels in the wings can cause serious bleeding, though mantas have some ability to constrict damaged vessels and reduce blood loss. The visibility of the vascular network also provides researchers with another identifying feature, as the precise pattern of vessels differs slightly between individuals and can be used as a supplementary identification tool. Manta rays are capable of learning and memory, demonstrated through studies conducted both in the wild and in aquarium settings. Captive mantas have learned to recognize individual human caretakers and to respond differently to different people based on past interactions. Wild mantas remember the locations of productive feeding grounds and cleaning stations, returning to them regularly over periods of years. This spatial memory requires the rays to maintain mental maps of their environment, updating them based on experience, and perhaps sharing information with other rays through observation or interaction. The cognitive abilities of manta rays place them among the more intelligent marine animals, comparable in some ways to dolphins and octopuses. Understanding their intelligence raises ethical considerations about how humans interact with them, and strengthens arguments for their protection and respectful treatment. The conservation of manta rays requires international cooperation, as these animals do not respect political boundaries and may move through the waters of multiple nations during their lifetimes. Regional fisheries management organizations work to coordinate protection efforts across countries, establishing shared regulations and monitoring programs. These multinational efforts face challenges, including differences in enforcement capacity, varying levels of political will, and the difficulty of tracking animals that spend much of their time in international waters beyond any nation's jurisdiction. Despite these obstacles, progress has been made, with several regional agreements now providing legal protection for manta rays across large portions of their range. The success of these agreements depends on continued commitment from all participating nations and on providing resources for enforcement and monitoring. Manta rays have no known predators once they reach adult size, aside from large sharks and orcas, which attack only occasionally. This freedom from predation allows adult mantas to swim slowly and conspicuously, without the constant vigilance that prey animals must maintain. The manta's lifestyle reflects this security. Leisurely movements, extended feeding sessions, and curious investigations of novel objects all indicate an animal that does not live in constant fear. Juvenile mantas are more vulnerable, and predation on young rays by various shark species helps regulate manta populations. However, the primary threats to manta rays today come not from natural predators, but from human activities, a reversal of the natural order that has occurred only in recent decades as fishing pressure has intensified and manta products have gained commercial value. The reproductive behavior of manta rays involves courtship displays that can last for hours. Male rays pursue females, sometimes in groups, swimming close behind or alongside potential mates. The female may test her suitors by swimming rapidly or performing aerial leaps, with less fit males unable to keep pace. Eventually, a successful male will grasp one of the female's pectoral fins in his mouth and maneuver into position for copulation. The mating itself is brief, lasting only a few seconds, but the courtship leading up to it is elaborate and energetically expensive. After mating, the male and female separate, and the female begins her year-long pregnancy. Males may mate with multiple females if opportunities arise, but females mate infrequently and invest heavily in each offspring. This reproductive strategy, where males compete intensely for access to females who produce few young, is common among large, long-lived animals. The skeleton of a manta ray continues to grow throughout most of the animal's life, though growth slows dramatically after sexual maturity. The cartilage that forms the skeleton is capable of limited regeneration, allowing the ray to repair minor damage over time. However, severe skeletal injuries may never fully heal, leaving permanent structural deformities. The flexibility of cartilage gives the manta's skeleton a degree of shock absorption that rigid bone cannot match, allowing the ray to withstand impacts and collisions that might fracture the skeleton of a bony fish. This resilience is advantageous in the dynamic ocean environment, where currents, waves, and encounters with solid objects are unavoidable. The cartilaginous skeleton, while lacking the strength of bone, provides exactly the properties that a filter-feeding, open ocean animal requires: lightweight, flexibility, and adequate structural support. Manta rays sometimes rest on the ocean floor, settling onto sandy or muddy bottoms in shallow areas. During these rest periods, the ray's breathing rate slows, and its overall activity level decreases markedly. The ray may remain motionless for extended periods, resembling a dark patch on the seafloor, rather than a living animal. These rest periods may serve a sleep-like function, allowing the ray to conserve energy and perhaps process information or consolidate memories. The manta's ability to rest on the bottom is facilitated by its flat body shape and its spiracles, which allow it to breathe without needing to swim. Not all resting occurs on the bottom. Some rays rest while hovering in mid-water or while drifting with currents, entering a state of reduced activity that may serve similar restorative functions. The adaptation of manta rays to pelagic life in the open ocean has involved modifications to virtually every aspect of their biology. Their large size protects against predators and allows them to travel long distances efficiently. Their filter-feeding apparatus enables them to exploit tiny, dispersed prey that would be impractical for a predator to hunt individually. Their coloration provides camouflage in the featureless blue environment of the open sea. Their intelligence allows them to navigate across vast distances and to remember productive feeding locations. These adaptations work together as an integrated system, each trait reinforcing the others to create an animal superbly suited to its ecological niche. The success of this design is evident in the manta's wide distribution and in its persistence over millions of years of evolution. Manta rays have inspired conservation movements that extend beyond the species itself to encompass entire marine ecosystems. The charismatic nature of mantas makes them effective flagship species animals whose appeal helps generate support for broader conservation goals. Protecting mantas requires protecting the waters they inhabit, the plankton they feed upon, and the ecological processes that sustain both. These protections benefit countless other species that share the manta's environment, from tiny zooplankton to large predators. In this way, the manta ray serves as an umbrella under which entire communities of marine life find shelter. The success of manta conservation can be measured not just by manta population numbers, but by the health of the ecosystems they inhabit and by the preservation of ocean wilderness for future generations. The relationship between manta rays and climate change is complex and still being investigated. Rising ocean temperatures may alter the distribution of plankton, forcing mantas to shift their ranges or change their migration patterns to follow food sources. Ocean acidification, caused by increased absorption of atmospheric carbon dioxide, may affect the plankton that mantas feed upon, potentially reducing food availability. Changes in ocean circulation patterns could disrupt the upwelling systems that bring nutrients to the surface and support plankton blooms. Sea level rise and increased storm intensity may degrade coastal habitats, important for some manta populations. These climate-related threats compound existing pressures from fishing and pollution, creating a challenging future for manta rays. Understanding and addressing these multiple stressors requires coordinated global action that tackles both direct threats and underlying environmental changes. Manta rays occasionally beach themselves accidentally, usually in areas where shallow waters and strong currents create confusing conditions. A beached manta cannot survive long out of water and will die unless returned to the sea quickly. There are documented cases of people working together to rescue stranded mantas, dragging or carrying the enormous animals back to deeper water where they can swim away. These rescues require coordination and care, as the manta's body is heavy and its skin is delicate. Successful rescues are celebrated as triumphs of human compassion and interspecies cooperation, moments when people unite to help a creature in distress. The fact that beached mantas rarely show aggression, even while being handled by rescuers, speaks to their gentle nature and perhaps to an understanding that the humans are trying to help. The evolution of filter feeding in manta rays represents an elegant solution to the challenge of fueling a large body in an environment where most organisms are very small. Rather than pursuing and capturing individual prey items, the manta simply opens its mouth and lets the ocean deliver food. This passive feeding strategy is energetically efficient, requiring less energy expenditure per calorie gained than active predation. The evolution of specialized gill rakers to trap food particles was the key innovation that made this lifestyle possible. Once this filtering apparatus evolved, natural selection favored larger body size, as bigger rays could filter more water and capture more food with each pass through a plankton bloom. This positive feedback between filter feeding and body size led to the giant manta rays we see today, creatures that have pushed the physical limits of the filter feeding strategy. Manta rays interact with the ocean's chemistry in subtle but important ways. Through their respiration, they release carbon dioxide into the water, contributing to the ocean's carbon cycle. Through their excretion, they release nitrogen and phosphorus that support phytoplankton growth. Through their feeding, they transfer energy and nutrients from the planktonic realm to their own bodies, where it is stored until the ray dies and decomposes, returning those nutrients to the ecosystem. These biogeochemical processes link the manta to global cycles that regulate ocean productivity and climate. The role of large filter feeders in these cycles is not fully quantified, but modeling studies suggest that abundant populations of mantas and similar animals may have measurable effects on nutrient distribution and ocean chemistry at regional scales. The sound of a manta ray's wing beats, when heard through a hydrophone, is a soft, rhythmic whooshing that blends with the ambient noise of the ocean. This sound is not loud enough to travel far, but within a short radius, it announces the manta's presence to creatures whose hearing extends into the frequency range of fin strokes. Some fish may use these sounds to locate and follow manta rays, taking advantage of food particles the ray disturbs or discards. The acoustic signature of a manta may also help individuals keep track of each other when swimming in groups, providing a way to maintain formation even when visibility is limited. The ocean is filled with biological sounds: the clicks of dolphins, the songs of whales, the snaps of shrimp, and the manta's contribution, though subtle, adds to the rich acoustic environment of the sea. Manta rays have become symbols of ocean conservation in many parts of the world, appearing on posters, logos, and educational materials aimed at promoting marine protection. Their distinctive silhouette is instantly recognizable, and their peaceful nature makes them ideal ambassadors for the ocean. Schools, community groups, and conservation organizations adopt manta rays as mascots, using their image to build awareness and inspire action. This symbolic role carries responsibility as people learn about mantas and grow to care about them. They also learn about the threats facing ocean life more broadly. The manta becomes a gateway to understanding concepts like overfishing, habitat destruction, and climate change. In this way, the ray's symbolic power translates into real-world conservation benefits, as informed citizens make choices and support policies that protect marine environments. The future of manta rays depends on decisions being made now about how humanity relates to the ocean. Will we continue to treat the sea as an inexhaustible resource to be exploited? Or will we recognize our responsibility to protect and steward marine ecosystems for future generations? Will we allow manta ray populations to continue declining? Or will we take action to reverse current trends and restore populations to healthy levels? These are not purely scientific questions, but ethical and political ones that societies must answer collectively. The knowledge exists to protect manta rays effectively. What remains is to summon the will to implement that knowledge. Every individual who learns about mantas and shares that knowledge with others becomes part of the solution, contributing to a cultural shift toward ocean conservation that may ultimately determine whether these magnificent creatures survive or disappear. Manta rays can recognize and respond to threats, altering their behavior when danger is detected. When approached by a predator or by humans behaving aggressively, a manta will typically swim away using powerful strokes that quickly put distance between itself and the threat. However, mantas exposed to frequent, non-threatening human encounters, such as in well-managed ecotourism operations, often become habituated and tolerate close approaches by divers and snorkelers. This habituation suggests behavioral flexibility and learning ability, as the rays apparently assess each situation individually rather than responding with fixed, instinctive reactions. The trust that habituated mantas show toward respectful humans is something of a gift, allowing people to experience intimate encounters with wild animals who have no obligation to tolerate our presence. The manta ray's life is one of perpetual motion through blue vastness, of following unseen currents to invisible blooms of food, of gliding through sunlit shallows and diving into dark depths. It is a life utterly different from human experience. Yet it is a life we can appreciate and work to protect. The manta asks nothing of us. It simply exists, eating, swimming, reproducing, and eventually dying, all according to patterns refined over millions of years. What we choose to do about the pressures we have placed on manta populations says more about us than about them. Our treatment of these gentle giants reflects our values and our vision for the kind of world we want to inhabit. Manta rays have no concept of borders, governments, or economic systems, yet their survival depends on how humans manage all three. They swim through marine protected areas and unregulated fishing grounds without distinction, following food and mates wherever these resources occur. Our artificial divisions of the ocean into zones of different management and protection make sense within human frameworks, but are meaningless to the mantas themselves. Effective conservation requires us to think like the rays, recognizing that the ocean is a unified system, where actions in one area affect conditions in distant regions. Protecting a manta feeding ground is pointless if the migration route to that ground passes through areas where mantas are hunted. Conservation must be comprehensive, spanning entire home ranges, and protecting all the habitats mantas need throughout their life cycles. The experience of swimming alongside a manta ray, matching its slow wing beats and gliding through the same water, creates a connection that transcends species boundaries. In those moments, differences fall away, and what remains is a shared experience of existence. Two animals, human and ray, moving through the same space at the same time, each aware of the other's presence. These encounters can be transformative, changing how people think about marine life and their relationship to the natural world. Many marine conservationists trace their dedication to a single encounter with a manta ray or similar charismatic megafauna, a moment when abstraction became personal and a general concern for the environment crystallized into passionate commitment. The power of direct experience with nature cannot be understated. It builds emotional connections that facts and statistics alone rarely achieve. Manta rays will continue to swim through tropical seas long after you and I are gone. If we make the right choices now, they will continue their ancient patterns of migration, feeding, and reproduction, participating in oceanic processes that have unfolded for millions of years and will continue for millions more. Or they will not. The choice is genuinely uncertain, and the outcome depends on collective human action over the coming decades. This is a pivotal moment in the relationship between humans and mantas, a time when decisions made will determine outcomes for centuries to come. Future generations will look back on this era and judge whether we rose to the challenge of protecting these animals, or whether we allowed them to slip away through negligence or indifference. The manta ray persists in memory even after the encounter has ended, its image lingering in the mind's eye like a beautiful dream. Those who have seen mantas in the wild carry something of that experience forever, a reminder that the world contains wonders beyond everyday experience. This lasting impression may be the manta's greatest gift to humanity. Not economic value or scientific knowledge, but inspiration and wonder, a sense that the world is larger and more mysterious than our daily concerns might suggest. In a time when wonder often seems in short supply, the manta ray offers it freely to anyone willing to venture into its domain and open themselves to the experience. And now the manta rays fade behind your thoughts. We've drifted through 100 quiet truths about these gentle giants of the sea. From their cartilaginous skeletons to their sophisticated intelligence, from their filter-feeding lifestyle to their migrations across open ocean, you are connected to this world. The same ocean that sustains the manta touches every shore on Earth, and the same sun that warms your skin warms the tropical waters where mantas glide. We are all part of the same planetary ecosystem, breathing the same oxygen that ocean phytoplankton help produce, drinking water that cycles through the same global system. Tonight, as you rest, manta rays continue their endless journeys through the deep. They feed in darkness, they visit cleaning stations, they swim in slow circles with their enormous mouths open wide. They know nothing of you, yet you now know something of them, and you are safe, warm, resting in a world full of wonder. If you're still awake, go ahead and watch the next chapter. Sleep well and dream softly. Good night.